The member for Bateman.
Thank you. I am pleased to rise today to add my voice to the conversation and debate about the Public Health Amendment Safe Access Bill 2021. I just want to recap what this legislation seeks to achieve. The legislation is to provide for safe access zones around premises at which abortions are provided so as to protect the safety and well-being and to respect the privacy and dignity of persons accessing the services provided at those premises and the employees and other persons who need to access those premises in the course of their duties and responsibilities. It also prohibits the publication and distribution of certain recordings. And we heard very powerful testimony this morning from the member for Burns Beach around why that is such an important part of this legislation. When I was invited to speak on this bill, my first reaction was, what could I possibly talk about for the 20 minutes that were allocated to speak to this? And it's not because I don't fully support this bill. I stand here in 100% support of it. It was because, to me, it is so self-evident, so absolutely clear that women have the right to access the services that are legally available to them in Western Australia. Obviously, though, this bill is being introduced to meet the need to protect women's rights to do just that. We have seen evidence of protesters, and we've heard evidence today of protesters who stand in their firmly held belief at these sites that women should not have the right to access these services in safety and in dignity. I don't dispute or argue against the beliefs that those protesters hold. I don't agree with them, but they absolutely have the right to hold them. They also have the right to express them. And in fact, it was only a couple of weeks ago out the front of this place that there was a vigil and prayer session held on exactly that. What I do not support is the rights of those people to impose that view on women at the place that they are seeking a legally available service. And the point was very rightly made that if it was men accessing services of a personal nature and a legal nature, I really doubt that we would have seen the tolerance of this kind of behaviour that protesters have exhibited for as long as what we have. So, the fact that this is not about freedom of speech has been upheld by the High Court, with all 7 judges agreeing that safe access zones do not breach the constitutional rights of implied freedom of political communication. I want to refer, as has been done often actually in this debate, to some comments from the member for Cottesloe. And he said on this bill, "A concern has been expressed to me by a Christian organisation that the very broad scope of this bill will unfairly impede the work that it does to assist women who may be accessing an abortion service but who are doing so because they are suffering from undue pressure or financial distress. One such group is 40 Weeks of Life." He continued, the member for Cottesloe, to say, "Women in this group conduct prayer vigils outside the clinics and also hand out brochures to women attending the clinics, offering help and support." The member for Cottesloe asked the key question in his mind, and he said this: "The key question is, does that mean there can be no interaction with a woman accessing the service?" Putting aside my note that the key question for the member for Cottesloe was not the well-being, safety, dignity or the legal right of women to access this service, but rather the rights of the Christian organisation to express their view at the point of that service? The answer to the question is no. There cannot be an interaction with a woman accessing the service, or their family, or their support person. So, to be clear about the point of support and counselling, a Christian group, no matter how well-meaning they may be, and no matter how firmly they may hold a belief, are not counsellors. They are not trained providers or medical professionals that are equipped to deal with the needs of women and their partners and families at this point of their lives. But even if we accept that in some way, and we have heard quotes and stories and testimony from women who have not accessed a service to find a helpful Christian organisation politely offering support, but if we accept that to be the case, I will state that it's not necessary. There is no GP that would take a woman accessing a service, requesting to accessing a service like this, who would not provide the care and the due diligence to go through a process with that client, with that patient, that woman, around what is in their interests and offer the appropriately trained services that are available to that woman. But I do want to talk about the issue that was raised around coercion, because for one woman I spoke to this morning on this very topic, it was an issue. She was coerced into an abortion. And she shared with me her story, and she gave me permission to share it here today. So she was in an abusive relationship, a marriage. She had already had children in the marriage, and the husband had declared that should she ever fall pregnant again, that the pregnancy would be terminated. There was another pregnancy, and the husband insisted that the pregnancy be terminated. The coercion and the abuse that the woman had suffered in this marriage and within this relationship for many, many years led her to conform to that coercion, or to succumb to that coercion, and she did attend a clinic. She described to me in tears the feeling that she had as she approached the clinic, about to do something that was not in her wishes, and then seeing the protesters. She described as she left the clinic following that procedure the horrendous feeling that she had as she was screamed at and had abuse hurled at her. She described to me how the trauma of that event was not even so much in the procedure that she was coerced to have, but in the trauma of stepping out of that clinic to be surrounded by hostile, angry people yelling at her and judging her for the situation that she was in. To somehow purport that having the protesters at the site would have protected her from the coercion that she was under, or that was it somehow helpful or is useful to vulnerable women, is a complete furphy. It added to her trauma, and it adds to the trauma of other women accessing these services. So I would like to conclude by saying that I stand in support of this bill, and that the professionals that work in these clinics, the women and their families who access them, have every right to attend them, to do so with safety and dignity and with their privacy intact. Thank you.